Hello everyone, my name's Mo. I'm a data engineer here at IBT. I specialize in building and maintaining data integration pipelines for near real-time analytics. And today I'm going to show you how quick and easy it can be to set up and deploy an enterprise level data mart from start to finish using the Qlik Talend Cloud platform. This is going to allow you and your team to begin extracting value from your organization's data in a fraction of the time and cost as compared to manually developing the entire end-to-end solution yourself. Now, our use case is that we have raw invoice data in our NetSuite accounting software that we want to extract and use to build an invoices data mart in order to get an overview of our organization's finances. So let's jump right into it. Let's demo the pipeline. To start off, we first need to pull our raw data out of NetSuite and land it in our data warehouse. And this is accomplished using something called a landing task. The purpose of a landing task is simply to move your selected data sets from your source system into your data warehouse in its raw format. It also continuously refreshes the landing data using either CDC or periodic loads. So if you're thinking about this in terms of a medallion data warehouse architecture, the landing task moves data into the bronze layer. If I open up the landing task on the left over here, you can see all the raw tables that I have selected from NetSuite. On the top right, I have the option to filter data. For example, if I want a subset of the source data, and I also have the option to remove columns. For example, if I'm loading in a employee table with sensitive columns, I can drop those columns. And going back to the pipeline, we can see a cool feature of Qlik Talend Cloud, which is actually that you can ingest data from different types of source systems into the exact same project. Over here, we are ingesting a date dimension from a SQL Server database so that we can use it in our invoices data mart. Now, looking up here in the top left, you can see another cool feature of Qlik Talend Cloud, which is that you can actually connect your project to GitHub for version control and collaboration. Moving on, we have the storage task. In terms of the medallion data warehouse architecture, the storage task is still very much in bronze layer territory. However, both the landing task and the storage task allow you to perform light transformations on your datasets. They are not meant for heavy transformations. That's the purpose of something called a transform task, which I will talk about later. The light transformations for the storage task and landing tasks include changing column names, adding or removing columns, converting data types, and replacing column values. Now, what the storage task actually provides is type 2 slowly changing dimension views for each of your raw data sets so that you can track how they change over time. If you look in the data warehouse, you can see the historical data sets here with the underscore history suffix. If we open one up, you can see that it has the typical history tracking columns, such as these date columns. They show when a record was valid and when it was replaced. Nothing is removed from these history tables. Changes are simply inserted as new rows. Once the raw data is landed in our warehouse, we need to run transformations on it to create our facts and dimensions data sets for our invoices data mart. This is accomplished using something called a transform task. A transform task does all the heavy lifting, allowing you to execute pretty complex SQL-based operations to turn your raw data into analytics-ready data sets. And all the SQL is actually executed on your target data warehouse platform. If you're using SQL, it's executed on SQL. If you're using Snowflake, it's executed on Snowflake. In terms of the medallion warehouse architecture, a transform task makes up the silver and gold layers. So in this transformation task, I joined a bunch of my raw source data sets. I ran some SQL transformations on them, and the result are these analytics ready data sets. These are my dimensions and my facts for my data mart. If we take a look over here in the invoice dimension, You can see that I've joined these source tables together. You can see over here in the SQL, there's a bunch of joins. Looking at the fact tables SQL statement, you can see I'm doing some explicit data type casting. At the bottom, you can see some joins and some filtering. The date dimension from SQL Server is not transformed, but it is now introduced into our pipeline. Now, we have facts and dimensions for our data mart, but the transformations are not quite finished yet. This next transform task also does transformations. However, it does transformations visually rather than using SQL code. If you look on the left here, you can see a bunch of different useful processes which allow you to perform different functions on the data. The point of this transformation is to enrich my invoice fact dataset with the date and invoice keys from the date and invoice dimensions. So the result is an invoice fact dataset with all my required foreign keys, including the date key, and now it is ready to be used in my invoice data mart. Before I can deploy my invoices data mart, I have one final transform task that defines the relationships between my invoice fact dataset and my dimension datasets. In general, transform tasks are capable of defining relationships between your datasets if you go to the model tab in the top of the console. As you can see, I have a central fact table and my dimensions are linked to it based off relationships that I've defined earlier by going to add relationships, selecting a dimension, and then selecting which foreign keys in my fact table link to the ID in my dimension table. It's really that easy. I just repeat the process for the rest of my dimension, and the result is a data model that Qlik will use to automate the creation of my data mart. At this point, we've ingested our raw data sets, transformed them into an analytics ready format, and we're ready to create our invoices data mart. This is where the data mart task comes into play. A data mart task is an out-of-the-box, fully automated data mart that handles all the behind-the-scenes mechanics and logic of a functioning data mart. There's no need for headache-inducing manual code to develop a data mart from scratch. Just deploy a data mart task. It's much easier. Now, in our invoices data mart task, I need to define a star schema. I've already defined the data model in the previous transform task, and that's what we're going to use. All I need to do now is add in the dimensions and facts, open up the recommended dimensions, select all, and apply. That's it. You can see here that our star schema model is based off the model from the previous transform task. When I deploy the data mart, Qlik creates the artifacts in the data warehouse, feeds it the latest data, and it's ready to be used for analysis. Subsequent pipeline runs automatically feed new data into the data mart, and that's it. Now I have a time variant invoices data mart that's continuously fed fresh data and is ready to give me an overview of my organization's finances. Now I'm going to speak about automation options. I could come in and trigger the pipeline manually every day, but if you need to do it every hour or every 5 minutes or even every 1 minute, you can actually automate this. Now to automate it, you can just come over here, click scheduling, add schedule, and set it to your interval. Another option is Qlik Automations. Qlik Automations lets you build jobs in a visual console and lets you automate tasks and processes within Qlik Cloud. You can use it to automate your data pipelines, which is what we've done. And it also integrates with a decent variety of third-party connectors if you look up here on the left. In this example, my Qlik automation job executes each task in my data pipeline in sequence. I have some logic blocks, which depending on whether or not a task in my pipeline succeeds, it executes a certain action. It's basically an if statement. For example, if my landing task fails, it sends a Teams message notifying the right people. And if it succeeds, it simply moves on and executes the next task. Now, this automation job also executes a data quality computation. A data quality computation scans a sample of the data sets in my pipeline to give me an indication of the data quality and generate something called a Qlik Trust Score for that data set. The Qlik Trust Score indicates to the end user how trustworthy a certain data set is based on a couple of factors such as validity, completeness, accuracy, and freshness. Now, this wouldn't be an end-to-end pipeline without any visualizations. We have our data in a clean, invoice-oriented star schema format, but would like to analyze it and make some visualizations using this data. This can be done by going to Analyze and creating a new application. An application lets us create visualizations dashboards by loading the data sets created by the pipeline that we developed earlier. I've already joined the facts and dimensions together into one data set, which allowed me to create the following graphs. Gross profit for month and comparing that for each year between 2021 and 2025, gross profit per year and number of invoices per client. So to conclude, today we looked at how the Qlik Talend Cloud platform made it super easy for us to study our financial data by continuously pulling raw invoice data out of NetSuite and into our data warehouse, transforming and cleaning the data into dimensions and facts for a star schema, automating type 2 dimensions for our datasets, and launching a fully automated invoices data mart, which allowed us to create visualizations dashboards to study our finances at a certain point in time. All right, guys, thank you for watching. If you have any further questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. I've put some contact details on the screen, or you can go to our website and reach us from there. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll catch you guys next time.